I figured it out why. Because if he says he has the Urim and Thummim to find the plates, how did the Urim and Thummim get buried with the plates? Travis Wayne Goodsell. As I was contemplating Brigham Young's plotting plans for the Salt Lake Temple to have his secret peep show, which is now our air shaft in the Salt Lake Temple, and then I went on to realize I'm willing to bet what is now the elevator shaft was intended to be a place to hang people who violated their temple covenants, particularly Brigham Young's ex-wives. I then realized Joseph Smith didn't use his rocks in a hat, the Urim and Thummim, to find the gold plates, the Book of Mormon. That's interesting. So I'm going to go over that rather than the temple plans of Nelson for 2024. And we need to go back to Joseph Smith Sr. in Vermont. They were Congregationalists. Anybody who tells you that he was a drunken bum and lacked spiritual morality can go bleep themselves. They were Congregationalists. And it's the same one that Ethan Smith eventually came to after the Smiths left, of which the Cowderies went to after the Smiths left. Am I leaking? I'm leaking. Okay, so Gatorade bottles aren't the best. They eventually wear out over time when you keep filling them with water. And it's to be expected. I use hot water and then refrigerate it. You can use the divining rods to search for water. It doesn't work for metal plates, but works great for finding sources of water. Get coat hangers, metal coat hangers. Hold them in your hand like guns, loosely fitting so that they're not gripped tight, and then walk over your toilet. They'll cross. It's really cool. Great stuff to teach your kids. And that's what Joseph Smith Sr. did to Joseph Smith. But I'm getting ahead. Nathaniel Wood came into town, well, the next town right next to where the Congregationalists met. Nathan Smith was a Congregationalist also. He was a preacher, but he got excommunicated from the Congregationalists, but that's all he knew, and so he moved to the Vermont area in between the Congregationalist city and where the Cowderies were staying, and established his New Israelite Congregationalist church, of which the Cowderies and the Smiths said, hey, yeah, we'll try it out. And the Congregationalists were believers that they were the literal descendants of the house of Israel, and thus New Israelites. And so when you realize that the Book of Mormon is talking about Israelites as Jews, Lehi is from Manasseh, and then Ishmael is from Ephraim, you then realize what's going on when we get to it. Well, with the Book of Mormon. I'm not getting into it, I guess. I'm not intending to. They also believe that Hebrew was the angelic tongue, but their Hebrew was Jewish mysticism. And Jewish mysticism involves the Kabbalah with the Tree of Life. And some other things that I've gone over with you. It was Kabbalah, before I knew that the Smiths were involved with it, and it's thanks to Joe Samson, a Mormon, who published the book Written by the Finger of God, who assisted me with the decipherment of Sade. I was having trouble identifying that one. In Semitic, William Foxwell Albright claimed it was a grasshopper. God, no. What are you thinking? But, no. It's the throne. But anyway, I was able to use that knowledge of Kabbalah and the various techniques to decipher the vocabulary, the next phase of my decipherment of Paleo-Hebrew. As I did the tests in accordance with Tamara, I believe it's called, the practice of Tamara. Gematria, you've probably heard of. That's the number game, where each letter of the alphabet, Hebrew alphabet, is assigned to a number, and 666 becomes any number of things that you impose, rather than the Roman numeral addition, IVXLCD. And because, for example, image of Trump or shofar horn, 666 in Hebrew. I thought that was funny. I mean, after all, they are wearing the mark of the beast on their foreheads in the baseball cap. But I digress. There was a Justice Winchell that joined the group. They were also, as part of Jewish mysticism, they were also into signs in the heavens. So the Holiness to the Lord parchment also comes from this group, where Joseph Smith Sr. got a hold of it for the family. And so don't think of it in terms of magic witchcraft. It's not. Jewish mysticism is not witchcraft. Witchcraft does, yes, use Hebrew on occasion. They also have their own alphabet, depending on which sect of witchcraft you belong to. But we're not talking about that. And so Joseph Smith Sr. is getting introduced to all of this Congregationalist variation from Nathan Smith. And so yes, you can see a lot of the Book of Mormon and stuff in that as well. And so Justice Winchell then shows up, and he is someone who's into magic. And so he teaches divination with the rods to search for, buried treasure. And that's where that comes from, is from Justice Winchell joining the group and teaching that to the rest of the congregation. There is a difference that needs to be understood that nobody else knows about, if they even know about this New Israelite Congregationalists, is that in order to be a member, you have to have your own personal enlightenment to desire to join, and then you petition the membership, and then the membership votes as to whether or not you can become a member with them. Joseph Smith Sr. never became a member. Neither did the Cowdreys, William Cowdrey. But it's well known that Joseph Smith Sr. was a master rodsman. He learned how to do it very well, which seems strange because he was unsuccessful in obtaining work to support the family because of the volcano that erupted in the Philippines that caused the summer without a summer and destroyed the crops for a third time. And so, yeah, they had to move. They were declared, because of their poverty, they were kicked out of Vermont, and so that's why they came to Palmyra, New York. But he also taught them forging, and it's different than counterfeiting, only in the sense that you can make things with metals, and yet counterfeiting is forging metals to it's fake art type of thing with metalwork. And so yes, you can see the necessity of making copper plates for the print press, but they were gold plates, Travis. So Joseph Smith Sr. learned how to forge metal from this Justice Winchell. And so obviously the divination rods, which in the Doctrine and Covenants, Oliver Cowdery is said to have the gift of Aaron with his rods. That's because William Cowdery taught it to Oliver, being in that same group. It's now changed to the gift of God in our current Doctrine and Covenants. I wonder why they would take that out and replace it. Just like I wonder why Moroni replaced Nephi. And so that's the background. And so both Joseph Smith Jr. and Oliver Cowdery knew about the rods. Joseph went in the different direction with the rocks in a hat. He had been known as a boy, as he was born in 1805. The wood scrape, as it's called, stopped that new Israelite group and disbanded it. And Nathaniel Wood had revelation that the world would end on a specific date. I can't remember the exact date offhand. I'd have to search it on Wikipedia. But yeah, it scared the surrounding townspeople who were not part of his group, and they called in the militia to break him up, and he went his way. And the Cowdreys went back to the Congregationalist church in the other town where they'd been, and then Ethan then joined, and then he published his book, A Few of the Hebrews. Had no plagiarism in the Book of Mormon, though. And people try to claim that it was an influence on the Book of Mormon. No, that was just the time period. A whole bunch of people were into that, as well as the New Israelites. They were there in America to restore the kingdom of God, build temples. They were in the process of planning on building a temple until the wood scrape sort of ruined all those plans. And so it's not the view of the Hebrews that influence the Book of Mormon and the Smiths. They'd already been influenced prior to. And what Joseph Smith did as a child, born in 1805, being taught about this divination game, was use rocks in a hat instead. And so he would play pranks on the neighbor kids by taking their items, hiding them, and then when they say, "Hey, where's my thing?" Joseph Smith says, "Oh, I can find it with my rock in a hat trick." And so, yeah, he'd find their items. "Oh, wow, that's cool, Joseph. You're my friend. Find treasure." Yeah, he went to work for Martin Harris on his farm, and that's where, in digging the well for Martin Harris, he found the polished rock, I guess. It's unclear because the church keeps lying to us, but he had a Urim and Thummim at one point in time, and then there was the nice shiny one that the church wants to show now. They can't show two rocks because the Urim and Thummim was supposed to have been taken by Moroni, not Nephi, to the spirit world with him. Even though we have those other two rocks, the church just won't show it to us. And so that's how Martin Harris knew about the rocks in a hat trick, is because Joseph would play the games with him too. And see this little trick I can do? Watch me pull a rock out of my hat. Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rock out of my hat. Bullwinkle and Rocky, Natasha and Boris and Natasha. And it amazes me why people don't think Russia is the bad guys. And so I just did the video about how the church is doubling down on the angel Moroni and restoring the hill Cumorah. And what you have there is 1823, 3 years after the first vision. 3 years. Strange, but this is all according to the 1838 version, which is canonized in our scriptures. And obviously the angel is Nephi, not Moroni, because it's William Morgan, who comes to town with the warning from the War of 1812. And they're in the York Rites Freemasonry with the Knights Templar, Friday the 13th, bloodline of the Holy Grail, of the literal descendant of King David to come in the latter days, rather than Jesus from outer space who failed to save the Jews during the Roman period. And the Egyptian gold plates buried in the caves in southern Illinois, where X marks the spot for the first and third day of darkness of the latter days. The Kensington Stone, purchasing the land for the kingdom of God in the latter days. And so Joseph, in 1838, finds it necessary to tell a more full story of the events that never happened. Because if Jesus is supposed to be a literal descendant bloodline from King David, from Solomon's temple, remember? That's the Freemasonry. Solomon's temple. That's why Nephi gets to the promised land and builds a temple after the manner of King Solomon's temple. Not a coincidence. As well as the Book of Mormon being in Egyptian gold plates, and also knowing Hebrew, and the Tree of Life that's in the replacement of the 116 pages, which we only get from Martin Harris, that's how Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon plates. It was from seeing him do his rock and a hat thing. But yet we're also told there was a veil placed between the two of them so that Martin Harris couldn't see him in action anyway. There's a reason. It's because certain Sidney Rigdon, who's the major author of the Book of Mormon, was working on those pages with Oliver Cowdery. Oliver Cowdery would then write out to Joseph Smith at Harmony, Pennsylvania, north of Pittsburgh, which is right between Kirtland, Ohio, where Sidney Rigdon is, and the Manchester Farm, where Smith Sr. is able to use the copper for the barrels for gunpowder, because they know a war is coming because of William Morgan. And so yes, William Morgan is the angel messenger, translated into English from Malachi in Hebrew, warning of the destruction of America, not Babylon. And so they have to, under William Morgan, he's there in Canandaigua, because that's where he gets arrested finally in 1826, 3 years later. So they're working on this book that William Morgan wants to have written and published with the Batavian Press, who had paid him in advance to do the work on writing this book, and was in Canandaigua at the lodge with Joseph Smith Sr. as the Master Mason. And so Junior gets to be a part of it, because notice he doesn't go to Harmony until 1826 to go work for Josiah Stoll, using his rock and a hat trick to find silver in the mine out there where Emma is, and he stays with Emma. And Mr. Hale was not very bright. You've got a single daughter at home, and now you're bringing in this single guy to stay while he works for a silver mining place. And then you wonder why he then has to elope rather than get properly married with the Methodists. As Joseph Smith is arrested by the nephew of Josiah Stoll on the 20th of March, 1826. And for glass looking, Joseph Smith is fined $2.68. And so you can see, Joseph Smith, because that's before September 1826, when William Morgan disappeared. And so you can see how Joseph Smith was involved in the sense that he was allowed to hang out with Dad. But then it came time, as because it's 6 months away, it seems that Smith Sr. needed a manner in which to bring out the book, and so there must have been some kind of pressure to keep it hidden, and so Sr. was already preparing a plausible deniability connection by having Junior go out to go work for Josiah Stoll in that place, and maybe it was just because Junior just wasn't involved with it at all, because that was Dad's thing with Sidney Rigdon and William Morgan. That's likely, though Sidney Rigdon has a connection with Junior, as he was living right next to Harmony, Pennsylvania, when he came back to Pennsylvania after being gone, after being in Pittsburgh, where everybody's thinking, oh, he was there with Solomon Spaulding at the same post office. And no, they weren't there at the same time. Spaulding dropped off his book, and Sidney Rigdon then came after, would have obtained the Solomon Spaulding manuscript, left Pittsburgh, and then came back next door to where Junior was staying, where in Harmony, with little Emma. And but then Rigdon went to Ohio to start his church there. And so whether it must be that Junior just wasn't really involved, because he went back to work for Stoll, to work in the silver mines after paying the fine. It's just, you can't do it with the hat now, Joseph. And that summer in June, I think we're nearing the anniversary here, he loses the that's the next, so he keeps working through that whole year into 2017, or 2007, what? Jumping ahead to the first day of darkness and the sign of the Son of Man, the first year of the reign of King Trump, King of America, when Nephi was born. 1827. And so Joseph Smith does seem to have been kept out of the initial work with William Morgan, as he was aware of it, but he went on to do his own thing to make money, and so 1826, William Morgan is found out, and they're getting him arrested to keep him from publishing the book, and the Batavian Press ends up publishing a book under his name, which doesn't reveal any secrets. It's just how to become the first 3 levels in Masonry, which everybody knew because everybody was involved in Masonry in those days. And but it does tell you about who Joseph Smith Sr. is and his duties as Master Mason, though, which is crucial to know. And so Smith Sr. Helps William Morgan escape the country, to disappear him, and takes on the responsibility to get the book published for him. But he can't go through the Batavian Press because people will now know. And that's where getting Martin Harris involved, because Junior already worked on the farm there. They know he's got money, And so Junior does this thing, hey, remember my rocks in a hat? Well, I found treasure plates, but he doesn't claim that in his 1838 account. He doesn't claim that the rocks in the hat were used to find the gold plates. He says that the angel told him where they were. And so he went there and saw it in a vision. Maybe that's what's missing. I can't find it in the Joseph Smith papers, though. But maybe Joseph is leaving that out. That's what he means when he says he sees it in a vision, is that he's trying to claim the rocks in the hat vision. Like Abraham has the Urim and Thummim, and so he sees in vision the stars in the heavens, Kolob and all that. And so I thought that was kind of interesting that Joseph does not outright come and say that the rocks in the hat found the gold plates, but that he uses the rocks in a hat, the Urim and Thummim, to translate the plates. So very interesting, the twists and turns of real Mormon history. So yeah, I've been taking notes. When I said in the other video that I was getting inspired to write the story, I've been writing it down. It would be a historical novel rather than a research document. So it's not really fiction novel. It's based on the evidence of history. But this prevents me from the delays of referencing all my sources and such, and yet making it entertaining at the same time. It's a story that's being told, and so it'd be based on actual events of real historical figures. I'm tentatively calling it 1826 Threat to America. We'll see if I even start typing it. But I thought I'd share that with you, that I find it strange that there wasn't this harmonious connection with the rocks in the hat with the finding of the plates, that the angel then took over in its place. And so section 3 and section 10, it's not the Lord chastising Joseph. He was banished from Harmony, had to go home to Manchester, thus section 3 and section 10 were written, and he was banished from his home in Manchester and told to go to Susquehanna River, which used to be called Harmony before the Smiths arrived in New York, but was no longer called Harmony. So, good times. I figured it out why. Because if he says he has the Urim and Thummim to find the plates, how did the Urim and Thummim get buried with the plates? I should have known this. See, talking it out in the video helped me figure it out. Thus, the angel tells about the plates that contain the Urim and Thummim, as he's not talking about the rocks in the hat, remember. You can't find it. So I grew up in the church not knowing about rocks in a hat. So yes, the church, in coming out and saying Joseph Smith did use a rock in a hat that is separate than the Urim and Thummim, they're on a hanging by a thread here. September 6th really screwed them over. No wonder they were pissed and had them all excommunicated and fired from BYU. This is now getting fun.